Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going deep, deep into quality improvement.
Ooh, sounds intense.
Yeah, we're tackling chapter 2 of this handbook, and let me tell you,
A whole chapter.
buckle up because this stuff is gold, whether you're, a quality guru or just starting out.
I like gold. Who doesn't?
Let's think of it this way. Quality improvement, it's all about making things better.
I like her.
Yeah, smoother, slicker, more fun, the whole shebang.
Gotcha. Like a well-oiled machine.
Exactly. And this chapter, it really stresses this one key idea.
Hit me with it.
Before we, jump headfirst into problem-solving mode,
Which we all love to do.
totally, we need to, take a breather
Okay, I can breathe.
and really grasp the whole system at play.
The whole system, huh?
Mm.
So it's not just about, slapping a Band-Aid on the problem.
You got it. It's about going deeper, finding the root cause, addressing that.
Ooh, I like that. Getting to the heart of the matter.
Exactly. It's like, let's say you're trying to, make communication with patients smoother.
Okay, I'm listening.
The handbook uses this example, and they say you don't just dive into solutions, right?
Right.
You ask yourself, who are the key players here? What tools do we have? When and where would a pilot project work best? What kind of communication barriers are we already facing? It's like mapping the whole territory before you even start hiking.
So it's like reconnaissance before the mission.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And the chapter introduces this framework that can help us do just that.
No, tell me more.
It's called Deming's System of Profound Knowledge.
Profound knowledge. Sounds fancy.
It is. And it basically breaks down systems thinking into 4 key areas.
4 key areas. Okay, lay them on me.
All right, the first one is appreciation of the system. And it's all about really taking a step back and understanding all the interconnected parts before you try to fix anything.
So not just focusing on one tiny piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. It's like appreciating the whole forest instead of just getting lost in one tree.
I see. So it's about context.
Yes. Context is key. And they give this really practical example in the book about a stroke unit.
Stroke unit.
Yeah, they were trying to improve the quality of care, but they didn't just jump into solutions.
Good for them.
They really took the time to understand the complexity of their system.
What that look like?
They looked at the size of the whole organization, the dynamics within the unit itself, how they were measuring performance, even how common depression was after a stroke.
Wow, they really thought of everything.
They did. It's like gathering all the puzzle pieces before you try to force them together,
Yeah, that makes sense. So first area, appreciation of the system. What's next?
Okay, number 2 is theory of knowledge. And this one is all about how we understand, why things work the way they do.
Ooh, getting philosophical now.
A little bit, but it's about using past experiences, research, data, all that good stuff to make smart decisions.
So learning from what's already out there.
Bingo. And this reminded me of something they mentioned about that Strom unit example.
Oh, yeah.
They actually used existing knowledge about, mood screening.
Mood screening.
Yeah, from other healthcare settings.
Smart.
Right. They were like, why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah,
It's all about learning from what others have already figured out.
that's efficient. Okay, so we got appreciation, we've got knowledge. What's the third area?
Number 3 is variation.
Variation, like things being different.
Exactly. It's about understanding the different types of variations that happen within a system.
Interesting.
Sometimes it's random, just chance. But sometimes there's a specific cause behind it.
Like detective work, right?
Yeah.
Figuring out if something's a fluke or if there's a deeper reason.
You nailed it. And they pose this interesting question about the stroke unit.
Go on.
They ask, what kind of variation might we see in, historical data on mood screening rates?
Makes you think.
Right. It makes you really consider the different types of variation that could be happening in any system.
So we've got appreciation, theory, variation. What's the final piece of the puzzle?
Okay. The 4th one is all about people.
People. Finally.
Right. It's called human behavior, and it focuses on how people react to change.
Oh, that's huge.
It is, because at the end of the day, any changes we make are going to involve people, their feelings, their, motivation.
Absolutely. You can't just ignore the human element.
Exactly. And I love how the stroke unit example brings this to life with some really practical questions.
What kind of questions?
They ask, are the nurses already overloaded? Are the team members actually willing to participate? How have they responded to new things in the past? Really getting into the nitty-gritty of the human side of things.
It's so important to consider that.
It is. And, all this is super helpful, this Deming's framework.
Super helpful.
But the chapter mentions that while Deming's work is, super important, they're actually going to focus on the IHI model for the rest of the handbook.
The IHI model. What's that?
IHI stands for Institute for Healthcare Improvement.
Oh, healthcare specific.
Well, it builds on Deming's work, but it's more streamlined, more practical.
So like a step-by-step guide.
Exactly. And before we jump into that, they throw in this fun little challenge.
I like challenges.
They want us to apply Deming's principles to something we do every day, making tea.
Making tea.
I know, right? But it's this fun way to see how these principles can be applied to anything.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does quality improvement apply to a simple cup of tea?
Well, think about it. Even making tea, it involves a whole system, right? There are steps, there are components, resources.
And variations?
Oh, tons of variations. What kind of tea, the water temperature, brewing time, all of that.
So we're applying those 4 areas to tea making.
Exactly. And the chapter encourages us to ask ourselves, what's one thing I could improve about my tea making process?
My tea's usually pretty good, but I guess there's always room for improvement.
That's the spirit. It's like a mini quality improvement project right in your own kitchen.
I like that. So we've got Deming's framework for understanding systems, and now this IHI model for putting it into action.
Exactly. And I'm really curious to learn more about how this IHI model can help us make things better, not just with tea, but in our lives overall.
Me too. I'm ready to dive into that.
Well, stay tuned because that's exactly what we're going to be exploring next.
Can't wait.
Okay, so we've spent some time with Deming and his system of profound knowledge.
Profound stuff.
It is. But now, let's move on to that IHI model you mentioned earlier.
Yes, the Institute for Healthcare Improvement.
Right, and remember that whole tea-making challenge?
How could I forget?
That wasn't just like a random tangent.
That's hoping it wasn't.
It was a sneak peek into how these quality improvement ideas can be applied to pretty much anything.
Anything. Okay, you've got my attention.
From complex medical stuff to brewing the perfect cuppa.
I am all about that perfect cup.
Aren't we all? But okay, so the IHI model, how does it approach this whole quality improvement thing?
Well, like Deming's framework, it's about creating positive change.
Right, making things better.
Exactly. But it takes this more, how do I put it?
Structured approach.
Yeah, more structured, step by step.
Ooh, I like steps.
It's built around 3 fundamental questions.
3 questions. Okay, I'm ready.
These questions guide the whole improvement process, so they're important.
All right, hit me with question number 1.
Question 1 is, what are we trying to accomplish?
Okay, that seems pretty straightforward.
It might seem simple, but this is where we define our aims.
Aims like goals.
Exactly. We set clear, specific, measurable goals for improvement.
So it's not enough to just say, I want to improve my tea.
Nope. You've got to be more specific.
Like, I want my tea to be exactly 175 degrees.
There you go. Or, I want my tea to have a bolder flavor.
I want my tea to brew in under 3 minutes.
Exactly. You need that target to aim for.
Makes sense. So that's question 1. What's the second big question?
Question 2 is, how will we know that a change is an improvement?
Ooh, okay. Getting a little trickier now.
It's all about measurement, you see. Yes, we need to figure out how we'll actually measure whether our changes are making things better.
So we can't just, assume it's working.
Nope. We need proof. We need data.
Okay, back to our tea example.
Always back to the tea.
If I want stronger tea, I need a way to measure how strong it actually is after I make a change, right?
Exactly. Otherwise, you're just guessing.
Data is our guide, our tea compass.
I like that. Okay, ready for question number 3?
Lay it on me.
Question 3 is, what changes can we make that will result in improvement?
Okay, so this is where the action happened.
This is where we brainstorm, we experiment, we try things out.
With my tea, maybe I try a different type of tea, change the water temperature, steep it longer.
Exactly. You try different things and see what gets you closer to that perfect cup.
So it's not about finding the perfect solution right away, but more about experimenting and seeing what works.
That's the spirit. And the IHI model emphasizes this cycle for doing that, called PDSA.
PDSA. What's that stand for?
It stands for Plan, Do, Study, Act.
Plan, Do, Study, Act. Okay, I can remember that.
It's a cycle of continuous improvement.
Break it down for me.
So first you plan the change you want to make.
Got it.
Then you do it, meaning you actually implement it, but on a small scale to start.
Like a little tea experiment.
Then you study the results, look at the data, and see if it actually worked.
And if it didn't?
Then you act on what you learned. Maybe you tweak the change, try something different, or scrap it altogether.
So it's all about trying things out, learning, and refining as you go.
Precisely. It's a dynamic process.
Not a one-time fix?
Nope, quality improvement is a journey, not a destination.
I like that. So we've got these three questions, this PDSA cycle, but do they give any real-world examples of the IHI model in action?
Of course. They talk about this case study about reducing wait times in an ER.
Ooh, that's relevant.
They use the IHI model to tackle the problem.
Starting with those three
Yep.
questions.
First, they defined their aim, which was to decrease the time patients had to wait before seeing a doctor.
Okay, makes sense.
Then they figured out how they were going to measure that. They tracked door-to-doctor time.
Door-to-doctor time, I like that.
They also looked at patient satisfaction scores, even how many people left the ER without being seen.
Smart. So they had their goal and their way to measure it. What changes did they actually make?
Well, they brainstormed a bunch of ideas and then started testing them out with that PDSA cycle.
The plan, do, study, act cycle.
Exactly. Some of their ideas were streamlining the triage process.
Triage, that's the initial assessment.
Right. They also worked on improving communication between nurses and doctors.
Important.
And even, like, physically rearranging the ER to make things flow better.
Wow, so they really thought outside the box.
They did. But the key is that they didn't just make these changes and hope for the best.
They kept track of everything.
They kept collecting data, looking at the trends, and adjusting based on what they learned.
This reminds me of our tea example again.
Of course it does.
If my first attempt at making the perfect cup fails, I can use this PDSA cycle to learn from it and try again.
That's the beauty of it. It's all about continuous improvement.
So we don't have to get it perfect the first time.
Nope. It's about making small changes, learning, and getting better over time.
This has been so insightful. We've covered Deming's framework for understanding systems, the IHI model with its structured approach, and even how it all applies to making tea.
And what's really amazing is how these frameworks can empower us to make things better, not just at work, but in our everyday lives.
That's so true. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's time for our final thought-provoking question for our listeners. Now that we've, really explored this idea of quality improvement and even how it can apply to something as simple as making tea.
It's not so simple when you really think about it.
Right. It's like, what other everyday routines or, systems in our lives could we apply this to?
That's the real challenge, isn't it? Seeing the world through that quality improvement lens.
Yeah, becoming more aware of all the systems around us, not just at work, but everywhere.
It's so easy to just, go through the motions,
Yeah.
accept things as they are.
Totally, autopilot mode.
Exactly. And this chapter, it really pushes us to break out of that, to start looking for ways to make things better, even in small ways.
And I think what's cool is that even those small improvements, they can have a ripple effect,
Yeah,
make you more efficient, more satisfied.
absolutely. It's like, what's that saying? Don't sweat the small stuff.
But it's all small stuff.
Exactly. But what's really interesting is that sometimes the biggest impact comes from fixing those tiny little annoyances that we've just gotten used to.
Oh, totally. Like we become blind to them.
System blindness, I think they call it.
I think we've all got a bit of that.
But hopefully, this deep dive, it's given our listeners the tools to start seeing those opportunities for improvement.
In their work, their lives, maybe even their next cup of tea.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about being perfect, finding the right answer right away.
It's about constantly learning, trying new things, making things better bit by bit.
Well said. So to everyone out there, keep those quality improvement muscles flexed.
Don't settle for good enough.
Even small changes can make a difference.
And who knows, you might even discover a new love for tea along the way.
Cheers to that.
This is your host, signing off until next time. Happy improving, everyone.